So I was asked the question the other day, is there any fragrances that you have in your collection that you started out and you didn't like them at all? You tried them out either in store or in a decant, and then you ended up not liking them, and then way down the road you ended up picking up a bottle and absolutely loving it. And I've actually had that question asked to me on lives, on comments, and so I figured I would do a video letting you guys know 5 fragrances that I hated originally that I now love. And so without further ado, let's get it. All right, everyone, welcome back, class. Everybody quiet down. Today we are going to be talking about some fragrances in my collection that I hated, absolutely hated, or just didn't like very much whenever I first tried them out. It took me months, even years, to get around to some of these fragrances, and I've been asked the questions either on my live streams and comments, all of that stuff. And so today the lesson is going to be on fragrances and how they can change for you. And so before I do, if you are new to my channel, my name is Randy, aka FragranceDoud. Make sure to subscribe if you like my content, and we will get straight into it here with one that I talked about either yesterday or earlier this week on my black bottle video, and I told you I'd be mentioning it here. My wife has liked this fragrance since I first even smelled it when we were in Ulta. It was in there for a long time, and then it was about to be discontinued, so I knew I needed to pick up a bottle. I did, and as I've owned it, I've loved it so much more. By Prada, this is Prada Luna Rossa Black. So whenever I used to smell it, I would just say, that's just a basic amber, musky fragrance with a little bit of freshness in the opening. And honestly, that is what I felt for about, I'd say a year. There was a long period of time, I think it was 8 months to a year, where I literally I even told you guys when I first started my channel, didn't like this fragrance. My wife picked it up for me a few months back, and when she did, I wore it, and I liked it, and then I loved it. It took me about 10 to 15 times of owning it and fully wearing the fragrance. So it can teach you that there are fragrances out there that no matter how many times you might dislike it, if you just keep trying and you keep trying, obviously there's expensive fragrances that you can't do that with, but there's fragrances out there that you can get your nose around to, and the way that your senses can adjust to certain scents based on your maturity level in fragrances is definitely how this is working out for me, because while it is still simplistic, you get that bergamot in the opening, provides like a citrus freshness in the opening mixed with that amber and musk, and then you get further into the dry down and you get some there's like a little bit of a green tinge to it, as well as that tonka to provide some powdery sweetness. It is a bit powdery, and then you have that amber floating through there, the musk floating through there, and a little bit of woods. That is the premise of the fragrance, Prada Luna Rossa Black, one that I definitely disliked, and now it is one of my staples as a date night fragrance. You get about 7 to 8 hours of performance, which is all you need. It's above average for the first 2, and then it's moderate. It'll have a nice personal bubble for you if you go out on a date. That is Prada Luna Rossa Black. Going into the second one here. This one I actually haven't mentioned on my channel. I was sent this and I purchased it from one of my subscribers. I believe it was Eddie. It is discontinued as of last year, and I definitely didn't like this. Even after I bought the bottle, I didn't like it. I mean, I was not like I hated it. It just wasn't one that I would pull above others, because you guys know my style, and leather usually isn't my style, but I ended up really liking this fragrance by Carolina Herrera. This is CH Men Prive. So picture kind of like a mixture between sweetness, aromatics, leather, and whiskey. This is a more mature sweetness. It has a little booziness in there from that whiskey, mixed again with that main portion of the fragrance, which is that mature masculine leather. You do get some sweetness in this. It's more further into the dry down. In the opening, it's not as prominent. I would say in the opening, it is much more mature than you get to the dry down. Something like Tom Ford's Noir Extreme, how the opening is a spiciness and that more maturity, and then you get that vanilla where it's still mature, but it just brings it down a little bit. This one again focuses on that leather, that booze. It has some woods in it, a little bit of aromatic tones, and then you also do again get that sweetness as you get further into the dry down. I believe it's from a tonka, but it's really nice. You get a little bit of a light woods, And I really did come around to it. It's kind of like a different kind of take if you don't like the ombre leathers of the world that smell to me like a leather couch or a car. I know a lot of people really like them, but they're polarizing in one direction or the other. You either like or hate them. This one is kind of meets you in the middle. It provides that maturity, that leather, and then it also does have this nice sweet backbone. So that is CH Men Prive. Again, I'm not going to go too far into these, just letting you know which ones have changed for me, and that one definitely did. Going into this next one, I really didn't like this, but the first time I sprayed this, I blind bought this fragrance and I sprayed it onto a tester strip. And when I sprayed it onto a tester strip, it smelled just like black pepper with a touch of vanilla. And I said that to Mo, one of my subscribers, and he was like, you should probably test it out again because I don't get that much black pepper. And while I still do get black pepper and a lot of spice, when you spray this on skin, it's a completely different game changer. By Bvlgari, this is Bvlgari Man In Black. I decided to not put this in my black video because I put it in my black and gold video last year. And Bvlgari Man In Black, I always try to smell it from the cap. It is a kind of like the CH Men Prive, where it has that maturity factor to it, but it also has a sweetness. It's almost like a little bit more spicy. It's a little bit more of a unique spicy take on what you would get with Spicebomb, the original Spicebomb or Spicebomb Extreme. It has that vanillic tone in it. It has some tonka bean. It's a little bit of an ambery quality as well, even a little bit balsamic. But with this fragrance, you get a nice spicy tone in the opening, but when you spray it on skin, you definitely get more of that sweetness and accompanying that spice, which really does level it out, round it out, and makes it a lot better of a fragrance than what you would get with black pepper. I'm telling you, it literally was like smelling black pepper for me the first time I tried it. I didn't love it when I first wore it on skin either. And then the third, fourth, fifth time I wore it on my skin, it's definitely getting to be a lot more. It went from like a 6 out of 10, and then it went to a 7. And then now I would say it's probably at an 8 to an 8.2 out of 10. It's still nothing that is breaking the bank, but I do like it. I like it as a random pull. I don't wear it all the time, but it's a great wintertime scent for sure. That is probably the only season that I would wear it in. It is, again, vanilla, spice. It has some woods in there, really good. Some powdery texture to it as well. That is Bvlgari's Man In Black. Going into the fourth one here, 4th out of 5. So I heard a lot of good stuff about this. This is more down your cheapy realm, and a lot of people talked about this. I heard about it from Jeff from SoCal Scents, and I picked it up. It's a rhubarb focused scent, so you guys probably know where I'm going. And I did not like this when I first sprayed it. I thought that rhubarb was too polarizing of a fruitiness. It was a little bit too almost unisex, leaning feminine to me. And that is Lacoste L'HOMME Intense. Lacoste L'HOMME Intense, there is a lot more going on with it. It is pretty linear from the opening through the dry down, but when I first sprayed it on my skin the first time, I remember I was walking my dog and I kept smelling myself, and I'm like, that is way too feminine for me. Like that rhubarb, I wasn't used to the note rhubarb, and so I didn't know exactly what to think about it. It was definitely a unique style cheapie, which it goes for about 20 bucks. It's fruity. It almost has like an ambroxany feel to it as you get to it, because it has like almost like a fizzy woods. And it's really a nice fragrance. Once I wore it and wore it more, now to the point where when I spray it on my hand, I'm like, oh, wow, that is actually so good. And for the price point that you get this at, and then there's also Lacoste L'HOMME Timeless that is very similar, except for it has a tea note in it as well. You get a fruitiness with this. You get that, I think there's ginger in this as well, which Lacoste uses that a lot in their fragrances. And then as you get to the dry down, there is like a citrus medley mixed in there with that rhubarb. The citrus dissipates. The rhubarb is still, like I said, it's very linear. It still stays there, but it does even itself out with a little bit of this like vanillic sweetness in the dry down, as well as a creamy sandalwood, rounding it out. It is a really nice fragrance, and one you should definitely get your nose on. That is Lacoste L'HOMME Intense, a unique fruity scent that, again, I didn't like very much when I first tried it, but it was the second time I wore it and I was like, yep, I like that a lot. Not feminine. It's definitely unisex leaning masculine. Still is unisex though. Going into the last one, I've talked about this on my channel a lot about how I did not like it, and now I do, so I figured I would save it for last. I just bought a bottle of this back in December, and I am absolutely loving it. This is by Dior. It is Dior Homme Intense. Dior Homme Intense, when I first smelled it, it was about a year or so ago, and I had a decant of it, and so I don't know if it was a batch issue or what it was, but back then it was that makeup-y style iris powder. Did not like it. It was not one that I would ever wear. And at that point in time, I had smelled Dior Homme Parfum, all of that. And so this one, it wasn't very sweet. I didn't get much of the pear in there, and I just wrote it off. I tried an entire 10 milliliter decant, tried it on my hand, tried it everywhere, and I could not get around to it. I waited an entire year, and then I asked Mo, again, Mo, one of my subscribers. Shout out to you, Mo. He sent me a decant of the Dior Homme Intense upon my request, and I tried it out. It was a lot sweeter than I remember, and so I decided to pick up a bottle because I fell in love with it. And so Dior Homme Intense, what you get is you do get that iris, and it does have that slightly makeup-y vibe, not as much as what you would get in the Dior Homme Parfum. But this one substitutes that almost cinnamon spiciness that I get in the Parfum with a nice ambrette mixture with that pear. The pear really does even this out, and I almost get with that iris pear mixture, the sweetness almost comes off like a fruitiness with chocolate. Like, that's the way it comes off to me. It's more in the realm of like your Valentino Uomo Intense, your Prada LHOMME Intense, where it's that iris fragrance that is powdery. And so if you don't like powdery iris fragrances, you still probably won't like this. But it does have that sweetness from the pear. It has that ambrette to provide like a sweet spiciness. It is a very well-rounded scent. It is very mass appealing in my opinion, much more than the Dior Homme Parfum. So if you have tried a Parfum, you don't like that style, I would at least get a decant. It's not blind buy worthy, but I think it is one of the best fragrances out there. It is my favorite iris fragrance with tied with the Valentino Uomo Intense, or the Prada LHOMME Intense. So that is Dior Homme Intense, really nice. You get about 8 to 10 hours with that as well. And it's going to be an above average projector. I mean, it's Dior, they have great longevity, great projection. So that is it. That is the one that changed the most for me. There's other ones in my collection that I've probably talked about that I missed, but those are 5. So just an FYI, if you don't like a fragrance at first, don't give up on it. There are fragrances that you're not going to like at first. I mean, I'm a big advocate of that because of the fact I'm a reviewer. I try fragrances and then I ended up doing first impressions, and then I'll come back in a full review and I might still not like them, and then I'll do a full review or a list down the road where I do like them. It doesn't happen very often. I usually can make my mind up very quickly, but with some unique fragrances like this one or Lacoste L'HOMME Intense, you might just have to give it a second and just say, maybe that one might not be my style, but I could still wear that, and I really do like that. And again, now this is one of my favorite fragrances. So yeah, let me know in the comments what are some of the fragrances that have changed the most for you, and ones that you hated and now you love, stuff like that. And again, I'll be back with another video. Thanks so much for joining me again. Peace out.